Thanks for jumping back into Crypto Crayfish. Today we've got plenty to talk about. We're going to be talking about altcoin season getting delayed. Yes, I know, I'm as shocked as you are. And we're going to be talking about Bitcoin versus Ethereum. We're going to be talking about my positions as they currently stand. And of course, we're going to be talking about the great pivot. So stick around. It'll be a fun one, decently short, and please subscribe and let me know what videos you would like to see in the future. All right, so it has been a little bit. We have had a lot of fear last week. I've been kind of figuring out new game plans in the past week, and I've got a lot to share with you all today. So let's talk about the great pivot and this U-turn you can see that's happening away from altcoin season. Now, a lot of Twitter pumpers, a lot of people online will not say that. They will tell you that altcoin season is imminent every step of the way as your altcoin bleeds down to zero against Bitcoin. So just remember that. I'm not necessarily talking about your altcoin. I'm talking about everybody else's altcoin and altcoins as a whole. It's possible to get altcoins that outperform, but overall the altcoin market is getting wrecked. All right, let's move forward here. So the great pivot. If you've watched this channel before, you know what my past thesis was. We'll do a little recap and we'll talk about why that's changed. If you are new to this channel, then you get to watch me be wrong. Wow, what an exciting first time to come into the space. Nothing better than getting to watch someone else lose money so that you don't have to. And hopefully you'll find it helpful, and hopefully I can be more correct in the future. At the end of the day, you know, we're making educated guesses, and I'm taking all the data into account, and it was time for a pivot based on the data I was seeing. So that's why I'm here. All right, so let's talk about the past thesis, right? The past thesis was that based on these things, the DXY, the dollar going down in value, the Bitcoin dominance starting to go down, seasonality, Ethereum traditionally has an amazing January, February, March, April, and May, and returning to the scene of the crime, meaning the ETH Bitcoin chart finally reaching 0.03, where it started its big move last cycle about 4 years ago. So because of those reasons and the signals we were seeing there, we believed that it was extremely likely that altcoin season was going to begin in, Q1 of, let's say, 2025. Now, it is technically still Q1, right? We still have another month to go, but I now believe that altcoin season is delayed, and we'll go over why that is. First, I just want to show you guys on the chart all those things and why we believed, Ethereum would outperform Bitcoin, why we believed it would do really well, and why, as that started to not come to pass, I had to rethink some things. So let's go over to TradingView real quick. We will start with the DXY here. And if you do not follow the DXY, I highly suggest it. It's a really great way to get a good handle on crypto markets and generally just kind of have a lead indicator on what's happening in the general economic space. Let's zoom in here to about a year. Yeah, this is good. And you can see we got these, let's go back a little bit to when we were making this bet, right? Let's look at 2024 here. And let's look into right here in October into November. And then, of course, we're in January now. So where did we talk about things last? We've done a few different ones, but the last time we really talked was, we talked about altcoin season starting right about end of November, right around here. Okay, and you can see we had this massive uptrend in the dollar. And we got this really strong breakdown below it. In fact, if you draw this a little bit differently, let me go to this wick. you can see actually almost a perfect retest and then another fall. And so that was the point where alts were really outperforming Bitcoin for a short time, from this high at, almost 108 down to this low at, a little below almost 105.5. And during that period, there was a huge alt run. They were doing much, much better. That's when XRP started kicking it, all these types of things. And a lot of people saw that as a signal for altcoin season. And I, myself included, and we talked about how if it gets another run, it might delay it a little bit, but I thought at the latest that would be Q1. Now I'm thinking that it really has continued upward. It has showed continued strength. And even though we've gotten this recent weakness off that 110 mark, we're still not fully rolling over. And that's really what we need. So that's what I would pay attention to. That's why that's where we were at right here. It made sense. We were breaking the trend line. It was one data point to suggest we might be headed towards altcoin season, and it's gone the other way. Okay. The other one is Bitcoin dominance. Okay. Let's look at that chart real quick. So you look at this Bitcoin dominance chart, and this is arguably even clearer, right? We can go to a multi-year. And you can see this massive uptrend, right? And this, I would say this, I was taking to the bank much more than the dollar chart, because this really is specific to the cryptoverse and was looking just really weak, right? We got this huge pump to above 61. It seemed like a pretty strong top signal. And then we got this pretty strong move down, right? From 61 all the way to 54. About an 11% drop in the Bitcoin dominance, okay? And breaking this multi-year trend line, right? Almost 2 years we've been on this trend line. And then we got the retest. It was a little bit sketchy for a little bit, and then we came back down below it. And at that point, everyone was kind of like, myself included, it's January, it's time for ETH, let's see it go. It'll start taking dominance from Bitcoin. And instead, as the uncertainty has continued, Trump, whatever you want to blame it on, we have gotten higher highs in the Bitcoin dominance, right? And people are always calling for this turn around. Frankly, I now believe, this could go back towards some of our previous ranges. So I think you could hit up here at 71. That would probably be where I'm looking for a big top if we do get that far. And it could top anywhere in between. But it's important to notice that really that breakdown was a false breakdown. We've had Bitcoin dominance shoot higher, and I think, you'll get in pullbacks, I'm sure, back to the trend line, all those types of things. But as far as the general trend, I believe it's still up, at least for a little while. So that's an important thing to notice as well. What's next? Seasonality. So we've talked about seasonality a lot, and that is something that's really strong in the cryptoverse. And so I'm just going to take you over to here, and we can look at monthly returns to kind of show seasonality to you. Right? This is our Bitcoin monthly returns table. What I really want to show you actually is Ethereum, because that was our past bet and will be in the future. I still plan to get into ETH, but I'm going to show you why I pivoted. This right here, this chart really is a great example of the reasoning behind it. Okay. So let's look at our data here. And you've got from 2015, which honestly 2015 is kind of a bad year. So maybe let's start in 2016. It just, half the year there's no data. So let's just go to 2016 to make things easy. And as we do that, it's going to pull up our charts. These are the returns that Ethereum has brought in since 2016. Okay. And this is important because generally Ethereum or the whole cryptoverse operates in 4-year cycles. So it's important. All right, it's not taking out 2015, whatever, it's fine. We'll leave it in for now. Okay, so let's just look. Let's start with December. Okay. We are looking at, of all the years, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of our 10 years that have been green in December. Okay, so about a 50-50. Great, totally fine. December is not necessarily, that's kind of known as the last more neutral month for Ethereum before it tends to go crazy. Okay, so 5 months green. And let's look at the previous bull market years. That's 2020. So the previous post-halving years. If you don't know, the halving was last year. That's when the amount of Bitcoin mined halves. And that's 2021 and 2017. In both cases, 2017, we had a 65% green in December. Sorry, we should be looking at, we'll actually be in 2016, right? Because we'll be entering the post-halving year. So a 4.4% decline in the post-halving year, in the halving year of 2016, and then we go to 2020, a 24% increase. Okay, so one red, one green, pretty small red, seems like a fine time period. What did we get this year? Minus 9%, almost 10%. Worst December on record for a halving year by far, and pretty close up there with some of the worst Decembers ever, even in bear market years. Okay, let's go to our next data point, right? January. January is insanely bullish for Ethereum in general. Okay, we've had 3, 5, 6, and then we just got 2 reds, but before our latest red, it was 6-3 for green. Okay, and both post-halving years in the past had been really, really strong in January. We had 32% in the first one, 2017, and 87% green in the second one in 2021. Okay, so all around the board, shaping up to be a really strong month for Ethereum. Instead, what did we get this year? Minus 6.6%, right? And that wasn't like after a super bullish December. That was on top of a negative December. Okay, now we head into February. Okay, we're not done with February, right? But let's look at the seasonality. Okay, we got 1, 2. We have only one red month out of all 10 years in the past. Okay, and that one red month was a bear market year, and it was minus 16%. Right now, guys, we are almost at that level of decrease without being in a bear market year, right? This is supposed to be when it's seasonally strong. And so you take all these data points together, right? 3 traditionally very strong months for Ethereum, especially in this phase of the cycle, entering the post-halving year. And we've got 2 proved red, proved discounted. And the third, we're almost halfway through February and it's not looking good. So that's, for me, when really the wake-up call started to come in of, okay, this isn't just a little bit different than last time. It's rhyming with last time. This is completely different from last time. And so then I started to rethink things. So let's head back to our little chart here. We talked about seasonality. Now let's talk about returning to the scene of the crime. And that is our ETH BTC chart. You guys are very familiar with this chart, as am I. And this chart has just been absolutely brutal. If you've been looking at this, we have been bleeding for, over 3 years. It's been pretty gnarly, okay? And so the idea behind this was, and I got this from Benjamin Cohen, give him some love. He's great at intothecryptoverse.com. And in 2021, right, this was as we entered the bull market or the post-halving year. We got, the bottoming had happened a little bit before of the ETH Bitcoin valuation, and then this is where we really started to get inflated into a bubble. And the idea of his was that we would return to the beginning, that kind of scene of the crime at about 0.03, right here, at the lowest to undo that bubble, right? Well, we've now hit 0.023. It's looking like that is not a floor. And that's kind of been disproven as well. So, again, this is why we're rethinking things. So, let's look at our current thesis, right? The main thing it hinges on, the main reason we have to point to for why this hasn't happened yet, why altcoin season is not starting, is that quantitative easing has not returned from the Fed. We are still getting quantitative tightening. If you don't know what that means, it means that the Federal Reserve in the US is still tightening its balance sheet at a historic pace. Okay, this has been going on since 2022, and it is still, we are still decreasing 25, I believe it's, $25 billion every month. Okay. So they are essentially undoing this whole COVID bubble. And the reason they've been doing that is because they are trying to stem inflation. Okay. In the past, right? Let's look when this bottomed. So you had this transfer, right? When did they turn on the money printer? You can see here, we had money printers go on, of course, here in 2020. Then you had a small bit of quantitative tightening, and then really into about August of 2020, you had them turn on the printers. Okay, let's go look at August of 2020. Or was it 2019 or 2020? Let's double check here. Sorry, 2019. So they were decreasing this balance sheet aggressively, right? And right here, they turned on the printers. August 19th, 2019. And from there, it went upwards, okay? So now let's look at this ETH-BTC chart. August 19th. This is August 1st. This is the whole month of August. It's right here, okay, guys? Right here. And what is this? This is the literal bottom of ETH-BTC last cycle. Okay? This was something I was aware of, right? I knew that quantitative easing had not yet returned, and I believed that it could happen without it, right? I believed that seasonality would outstrip it. I believed that there was plenty of other nations increasing M2 money supply around the world, plenty of other nations already printing, and that Bitcoin really the crypto market as a whole was not solely reliant on the US. I still believe that. However, I believe that the US is a huge signaler of what other Federal Reserves are doing, and I believe that quantitative easing clearly is having much more of an impact than we thought, because this chart is looking really ugly. Okay? So, my current thesis, we need quantitative easing before altcoin season comes. And therefore, I'm not buying anything that's not Bitcoin until we have quantitative easing. That's just my new line in the sand, right? I've lost enough money with this other past thesis, and clearly it's been invalidated. Okay? Let's go to our 2017 comparison, right? So in the past, we were looking at that 2019. We were thinking, okay, that was the halving year, and maybe it's more about the timing than necessarily the quantitative easing. Let's go back to 2017, just really show you something that's pretty stark, and that is, and yes, I know Ethereum had just launched at this point. You can, kind of make those excuses for it, and I have too in the past. But just look at this chart, okay? And just for a second, imagine with me that it's legitimate and something that we should really take to heart, okay? I want you to look right here. As of December of 2017, right? So the post-halving year, the year we're in now, so that would be December of 2025, ETH Bitcoin was at its range low. Okay? Then, what altcoin season wasn't canceled, right? We got altcoin season. Ethereum went on to outperform Bitcoin in the next month and a half by 414%. That is altcoin season. That's beautiful. But it didn't come till the very, very end of the post-halving year. Okay? And that's something that's really important to pay attention to. What was the Federal Reserve doing at that time? It was flat. It was not moving the balance sheet. So even with the balance sheet not decreasing, as it is now, altcoin season didn't come till the very end of that year. Okay? So we thought we were in this new paradigm, and I really don't think we are. I think we do need quantitative easing for altcoins to happen. Okay? So what does that mean for now, right? We're taking these warning signs to heart. That's what it means for me. And really what it means for me is, it's still a post-halving year, right? I still believe that Bitcoin will do well. And frankly, altcoins can continue to go up. But The real question is, are they going to go up against Bitcoin? Because take last week, for example, we had the biggest liquidation event in history. People believe it was about $10 billion was liquidated on Monday of last week when we got this whole tariff news. And that was the biggest in history. Yes, even bigger than COVID for crypto. Okay. That was a pretty major warning sign, because if you look back at that, Bitcoin, it dropped, I can show you this, it dropped very modestly, right? I mean, maybe people panicked, but frankly, it was pretty unimpressive. We had it go from, here it is right here. We can take it from early February if you want. Take it from the high, why not? Right, this went down 14%. Okay? I mean, big move, but not for crypto, right? Like, that's a big move in the stock market, but not massive for crypto. Really pretty solid. And within a day of that crash, right, Bitcoin was back to only being down a little under 4% from that high. Okay? Let's look at the difference to Ethereum. Okay, and you might argue your alt's better. Okay, we can look at some other alts if you want to. But I've got to zoom out on this chart because it's so drastic. And let's just measure. Okay, from the top to the low like we just did. It's blocking me, of course. Top to the low. 38% versus 14, guys. 38%. Are you kidding me? An extra 24% drop versus Bitcoin? And you might say, okay, well, that was just panic. Look at that wick. Sure. Let's take it to the recovery. How about 15% down? 15% down versus 4. Okay, that's major. And that is what I'm saying, guys. That's why I believe that you should not be in alts right now. And it's your money. Do with it what you will. But at this point, I believe that you are taking on more risk for less reward, right? The opposite of what you want to be doing. I believe you should sit in Bitcoin until quantitative easing returns at the very earliest, okay? That is what I'm doing. That is what I believe. And this is the reason, right? Let's look at one more. Let's look at Solana. Solana held up pretty well. So this will be a good judge, actually, to see if it was worse than Bitcoin. Solana, high to low, 28%. Double the drop Bitcoin got. Let's see the recovery. To the recovery, 10%. More than double what Bitcoin recovered to, right? 10% versus 4%. It's a major deal. And that's really the issue, guys. As Bitcoin goes up, altcoins tend to kind of keep pace with it. But as soon as Bitcoin sneezes, you see altcoins catch the flu. It's a big, big deal. Okay, and so that is why I believe that, altcoin season is delayed. I'm waiting for quantitative easing. We'll discuss it when it's time. But for now, I am pivoting to Bitcoin. Okay, let's talk about my transparency and my positions, right? If you've been to this channel before, I show you how I'm positioned with actual dollar amounts on a frequent basis, and it will often show you in my investment accounts. Okay, so how am I positioned right now? Well, that's what I've been doing over the last week. I've been figuring out how I want to be positioned before I tell all you guys. And here's how I'm positioned. ET, I've got none, right? I had almost $97,000 of this. I now have zero. BitU, I now have zero, right? That's the other leveraged fund. Frankly, I am not holding crypto right now. And why, might you ask? Especially if you're bullish on Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin will do well, but I also think inflation's a worry right now. I think jobs just came in really hot. And I think there's a tendency for Bitcoin to really at least stall out when the unemployment/inflation is uncertain. Once that's kind of cleared up, it starts to run. And so for me, if Bitcoin breaks convincingly above 100K with, say, multiple daily closes or a weekly close, then I'll probably get back in looking for that potential push higher. But until then, I'm content to kind of sit on my hands, And you might say, you're a coward, you took the loss, whatever it is. And frankly, it's been hard to take that loss. But also, I think you're fooling yourself if you're just watching something bleed towards zero and you don't expect that to change and you're just unwilling to sell because it's at a loss, right? I am a fan of making money, and I don't think you have to make back that money in the same way you lost it. So ET was not a good position for these last few months. I now know that. We're moving forward, and I believe I can get the timing better in the future, right? Or not have to time it at all by just being in Bitcoin, right? I don't think Bitcoin's going to go down really aggressively for the long term. It might have corrections, but that's kind of where I'm at. If we get a drop down towards, 80, 70K, I will definitely get into Bitcoin because I think that's really attractive going into this post-halving year. Of course, I've still got stocks in gold, and I've got about 60K in cash to deploy. So yes, I have taken, about a 30% loss on my initial position. My goal is to stay smart, stay risk managed, and not just be hunting for any way to make that back as fast as possible. For me, it's about, okay, that was an expensive lesson to learn. And frankly, I didn't sell the bottom, right? I wasn't panic selling. I just, into the end of last week, saw some decent big bounces on the ETH Bitcoin valuation and decided, here's enough. I think ETH BTC could go lower, and I think Ethereum USD could go lower. And so for me, it was like, all right, I'll at least swap to Bitcoin. And for now, I'm just waiting to kind of do that. So that's where I'm at. That's how I believe that this market should be played. And I would encourage you all, if you're sitting on alts that are bleeding aggressively, I would encourage you to cut your losses before it gets really, really painful. I know people are saying, oh, we're at max pain right now. I'm telling you right now, we are not at max pain, right? Ethereum from historical, if we look at the logarithmic regression curve, let me show you this because it's quite concerning. Okay, let's look at Ethereum. First of all, let's look at past cycles, right? We have always hit the lower trend line of this, not even the upper, okay? This most recent cycle, we went below the lower. Now that was COVID, but we were on the lower before COVID. Now look at this cycle. We've avoided going there, okay? And the thought was, okay, this is good. It's holding up well, right? That was my thesis. But currently, I now believe, maybe we could go there. I don't know. But it's clear that Ethereum is not doing what it seasonally does. And so that's where you have to be prepared for a potential worst case scenario. Let me tell you where that's at right now. 1.07K. Okay? Middle of the range, 1.56K. 2.27 is what we just hit. We did technically touch the top end of this range. So I'm not saying it has to go down there. I'm just saying it's possible. And frankly, I don't really want to hang around to find out, right? There's enough upside exposure potential in Bitcoin, and there's plenty of volatility and risk, frankly, in Bitcoin to not hold something that's clearly bleeding against it. When I believe that these altcoins will outperform, I will let you know. But again, it will not be until QE returns. That's a hard line in the sand for me. I don't care what else changes. Okay, so this just shows you there can be much more pain if you are sitting on losses and you are scared to take them because you feel like, at some point it will go up. I understand. I get it. There's a reasoning to kind of hide your head in the sand, and at the same time, that's a logical fallacy, right? If you just switch over to Bitcoin right now, and once alt starts to outperform, you switch back because there's reason for altcoin season to start, like quantitative easing, you will be much better off and potentially have bought in at much lower prices than now. Now, is it possible it starts right now? Sure, anything's possible. But frankly, that's not the likelihood I'm seeing, especially with the macro uncertainty of tariffs and inflation, y'all. I think, I wouldn't be surprised to have weeks of chop or weeks of some downside moves. Hopefully you found this helpful, and I will see you in the next one. Please give me a like and subscribe. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.